Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we'll give this just a few seconds. All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and people of various things. My name is welcome to this session of the Northwest Interlibrary Loan Conference for 2023. This is our second double feature. Today's date is September 20th, 2023. So the first session we're going to have today is going to be a Rapido product update. It'll be presented by ExLibris. Meghann Weldon will be the speaker. My name is Libby, and I'm the convener for this session. This session is being recorded with permission from the presenters. Because they retain the copyright to the information they are presenting, they may choose to request its removal from public viewing in the future by written request to NWILL. However, at this time, it is planned that recordings will be made available once captions have been added. Attendees will be notified when recordings are available. To turn live captioning on, click the CC button at the bottom of the screen and click Show Subtitles. If you have a question during the session, please use the Q&A function in Whova, and I will pose these to the presenter at the end of their presentation. We will not be monitoring the chat for questions. When the presentation ends, please complete the post-session survey in Whova, located on the conference homepage and the session chat. And I will drop that link in the chat now when I'm done talking, if the host has not already done it. On that note, I'll turn the session over to our presenters.
Thank you, Libby. Hello, everyone. My name is Meghann Weldon. I'm Rapido Product Manager. I joined the resource sharing community first as an interlibrary loan student assistant. That could probably be a fun poll or question in Whova. I think there's a lot of us in resource sharing who began as student assistants. Today, I've got a short time to speak with you, so we're going to go quickly. And I'm going to try to bounce my slide along. Our agenda today, we're going to start with talking about resource sharing community, a look at the present with Rapido, talk about customer success with Rapido, what's coming, and hopefully we'll have time for Q&A. So we know that the resource sharing service is an integral service in libraries, and the connections within this work require a great community and have an impact on their local communities and beyond. So let's look at what resource sharing looks like today in ExLibris solutions. So we have in 2022, we've worked with over 2 million requests. There are about 1,000 active libraries in the RapidILL and Alma resource sharing collective community. 97% of requests are filled by the first lender, meaning the first supplier, the first partner that request goes to. Physical items have a fulfillment rate of 87%, and digital items have at least a 92% fulfillment rate across the system. Rapido is a part of a growing collective community, and with that, a growing collective collection. We have Rapido libraries in the US, Canada, UK, Switzerland, Hong Kong, Australia, and New Zealand. As this community grows, so does the collection and the access to the end users. Today, 109 libraries are using Rapido, and they're doing so in an arrangement of 51 different pods. They're connected to 660 digital RapidILL partners in the RapidILL community, and in 2022, there were 166,000 borrowing physical requests and 570,000 digital borrowing requests. And when I look at the numbers from the first half of 2023, it's just grown tremendously. Rapido libraries, I mentioned the pods there, 51 pods. Rapido libraries are using pods to connect with one another. Pods function to connect libraries that are working under shared terms, and the pod, the workload within the pods are balanced. And a recent pod that was created is an international pod for furthering those connections. The three core pillars in our work in Rapido are these themes of connect, personalize, and optimize. I think everything simmers down and also scales up from these concepts here. Connect, you're connecting with other libraries, you're connecting your users with resources, you're connecting to that global collection of resources for equitable collaboration to expand your collection. Personalize, there's a huge, I think Jennifer and Brooke spoke to this already a bit about personalizing in Rapido and the various ways that you can do this for your staff experience. There's also a lot of personalization that you can bring to your end user experience. And all of this connects to optimize. In Rapido, we see 1 out of 10 requests. Only 1 out of 10 requests need staff hands-on manual processing. Everything else is largely automated. So that simmers down, I think, to Rapido being a system that handles that request volume for you, leaving staff more time to work with their students, support those user needs, and find those harder to request resources. I saw that the comments in the chat earlier discussing enjoying that detective work. And so the automation and optimization here gives you that time when your expertise is needed. Oh, and I'm sorry, I actually bounced backwards. So I'm going to bounce forward here again. Okay, within Rapido, there are a few different channels and activities of things going on. So Rapido is an established resource sharing solution. Just like other ExLibris products, there's a working group that myself and others members of the product team collaborate with. And this working group I know has been very busy with the NERS voting process and evaluating things submitted by the community into the Rapido Idea Exchange. In addition to that type of development with Rapido, we also have monthly webinars where we discuss the updates as there's new releases of items coming to Rapido each month. Customer success is also an established part of the Rapido experience, just like other ExLibris solutions. And in customer success, I work with libraries who have gone live, so they've already finished their implementation experience. Maybe they have questions that persist after that. They want to fine tune things, etc. I work with them to support their success in whatever success means to their library. We also have a full roadmap, and soon we'll have the items for the 2024 roadmap on our website. Oh, and I'm sorry, I'm scrolling out of order here. Okay, so Rapido is a part of the resource sharing ecosystem. So we know it's just one part of the resource sharing ecosystem, and its use and connections might look different for your libraries. So we know Rapido libraries can connect directly with ILLiad libraries via the ISO partnerships that were spoken to earlier. We're working with OCLC for direct peer-to-peer connections for that connection to work directly between Rapido, TPASA, and WorldShare libraries. Additionally, Rapido has cloud apps for filling requests through CCC, Get It Now, and Reprints Desk. Tony spoke to his services earlier. We have a cloud app that integrates with them. We also have last resort style connections, as what it's referred to in documentation. So if requests go unfilled in your Rapido environment through your partners, some libraries will then kick that into Share It, WorldShare, TPASA, Reshare, ILLiad, whatever they have maybe working in tandem for fulfillment there. Rapido libraries, again, they're participating with the broad RapidILL community for the digital resource sharing. And they're connecting with one another through pods. They can also connect to Alma libraries via pods to further automate that or continue that automated workflow and connections of processing their requests. So I want to acknowledge hybrid pods briefly. That is the way that we can connect with Alma libraries in a pod type of way, or you can connect peer-to-peer as you might already be used to connecting between your Alma environments. An important part of that kind of hybrid pod or thinking about the just connections, I think in general in the resource sharing community, is the resource sharing directory. All Rapido libraries are automatically added to the directory. Alma libraries can add themselves to the directory. Alma libraries who are using ILLiad can add themselves to the directory. Really, the directory is there to help libraries identify who might be a potential partner. So if it's compatible for your library to be in the directory, being a library using Alma or Rapido, I encourage you to be in that directory to help facilitate those connections and partnerships. Another configuration to consider is the data sharing profile. Toggling that to yes allows Rapido to suggest who might hold this item. So if the request does go unfilled by Rapido and a library is using the find partner feature, I'll hop to the next slide to see what that looks like. Essentially, if an item goes unfilled and a Rapido library is using the find partner feature to further connect, to expand their network, libraries who've done that data sharing will show up here so Rapido libraries know who might own this item so that they can then submit that request to them. First, they would be establishing that partnership. That library would say, yes, let's be partners. I'll partner with you for this one. They can set up that partnership and then get that item. Or maybe they become established partners and are just a part of everybody's automated workflow and use. So looking a bit more at Rapido, we see that find partner workflow there, but there's a bit more to it there as well as workflows we can discuss today. So we spoke to the Rapido is a connected part of the ecosystem with all of the various systems of partners that it can connect with, obviously via the pods, ISO partners. We heard about ALA partner connections, and then we have the ISO peer-to-peer connections. Here's a pod process structure kind of visualized. As a Rapido library, you prioritize the order in which each pod is used, and then the request would go downstream from there. Pods operate with shared terms like delivery, time period, loan period, number of days before request expires, renewal, yes or no. So your request, it already goes out to the partners with those known terms. And with that, the personalize is another big part of the Rapido experience here. You can fine tune your sets, alerts, labels, mediation rules, copyright rules. I think we heard about that a bit earlier, but I'll show you some slides on that as well. So you can really customize your Rapido experience for your staff workflow there. And again, for your end patron experience with the display logic rules and configurations, you can decide when they get an offer, what that looks like. The patrons have that request transparency at the time of request and in their library card. So thinking about what that looks like here in the mediation rules, this is kind of what it looks like to create a mediation rule. There's a variety of parameters that you can create that on based on what's relevant or needed for your library. Again, the requests go from your patron automatically to your partner unless your mediation rule comes into play to stop them. So if you want to mediate anything that is, I don't know, published within X year range, anything submitted via the blank form, there's whatever kind of parameters are of value to you that you feel like you want to look at or review before it would go to a partner, you can make that mediation rule. One of those mediation rules that we see a lot in our Rapido libraries is if you allow requests on locally owned items, you can create a mediation rule that automatically assigns your library as the lender. So then those requests flow into your normal lending workflows. So you have your, printing your slips, your reject action, your download and deliver, etc., from that lending workflow that you're used to, so that it's a streamlined process. And if for whatever reason you can't fill it for your own user, you can reject it just like you would have to reject any other lending request in that situation for it to then go onwards. Copyright rules, again, you can make copyright rules a lot like mediation rules. They're available on a lot of various parameters. Copyright rules can operate in two main ways. One of them being they can be automatically approved, meaning your copyright rule, if a request aligns with those parameters, it just gets that label that you associate in the configuration here, and then you can evaluate anything with that label at a later date. Or you can block those requests, meaning they're going to be stopped for review, and you will look in your workflow sets to look at those requests before they would go out to the partner. So really customizable copyright handling here. So your end users are seeing those known offers for the library users in their pods. So that's where I got hung up earlier. You've got those pod terms here. This work is available from a pod that gives them a 5-day delivery expectation and a 112-day loan period. So your user at the point of request can decide, does this meet my needs? If so, I can acquire it this way. Perhaps though, waiting 5 days to get this item doesn't meet my needs. I only need the one section of that work really for my homework assignment. So I can select to get just that portion of the work within that 24-hour timeline. And then they get the confirmation notice, which that's another piece you can personalize for your end user to know that their item was submitted successfully. That transparency continues into their library card here with the progress bar updating if they get that filled, or as it gets filled. They also, as a library, you can determine the number of downloads that a user has available to them, and that's visible in their library card. And the download expiry period that can be configured by or customized by your library, and the user can see that. So they get the download option when they get that email notice that the request has been fulfilled, but also when they look in their library card, they have that consistent information as well. Okay, optimize. So those are all different kind of ways that you can tailor your Rapido experience to work for you. But thinking about optimize, we spoke to that with the end users. They can borrow at the point of discovery. They can make that decision on what works for them. The pods move the requests automatically through your prioritized partners without needing staff time to configure who your preferred partners are, what order it's going to happen in, who's fastest turnaround time, et cetera. You don't have to do that evaluation. You just are joining the pods and ordering the pods based on that order. You can handle more lending and borrowing volume with less of your time spent on that. Jennifer and Brooke spoke to that earlier in their presentation. They saw a big jump in their borrowing volume, but we didn't necessarily hear about that being a burden on their workload. And that's a common thread that I hear from libraries I work with. And then out-of-the-box analytics for your assessments and measurements. So we have out-of-the-box analytics reports. Those are continuing to expand on what's there. And just like Alma Analytics, there's a lot of customizing you can do for your own look at things. And I'm seeing my next slide that's coming up here, and I must have accidentally dragged it and dropped it into the wrong place. So I'm sorry, this is a little out of order at this moment, but one of the other pieces of that kind of workload is you can ship digitally directly from your download screen when you're a lender. So it's an optimized workflow rather than a personalized workflow, but you are in your Rapido sets. You'll see your holdings there. You can link directly to the resource through the download electronic resource action, and then drag and drop the file there. Similarly, within your lending workflows, you have that visibility for physical requests that you want to fulfill. As a lender, you're not getting requests for items that are not available, items that you don't lend. All of that is known by your partners. So you can choose here which collection you're lending out of, or perhaps you have that automatically selected for you with your configurations. In the lending workflow, you can also choose to exclude non-workday delivery from your expiry period. So this library here is saying that even though they're participating in a pod with a 4-day expiry period, they don't want Saturday and Sunday to count against them. They want those extra days to be able to consider those requests before they get bumped on. And thus they are including that in their general configurations, and they have more time then to work on those requests before they move on to those partners. If a library perhaps is not staffed Fridays, they could include Friday here as their regular day to not be counted in their expiry. So that's a piece for you in making that decision about your workflow and keeping the requests moving along to your partners. We have monthly releases that continue to share continue to bring developments to Rapido. In our monthly releases, we speak to the community growth and aspects of the community that might be relevant to attendees. We speak to the monthly releases and we address frequently asked questions. So you can register for the monthly release webinars or the monthly webinar updates and attend those. And there's always time for questions there so that we can have good discussions about your experience with Rapido. Okay, customer success. It's kind of a jargony title, but really what that means is me working with Rapido libraries after they've gone live to help them have a successful experience with Rapido and whatever that means to them. So it begins after the implementation experience ends. We meet regularly or kind of on your schedule to meet your needs. It can be a one-on-one with one main player in the team, or you bring the whole team. That's up to you at your library. That experience really is tailored to your library. So I work with you to understand your use of Rapido, the context, what your decisions are for using Rapido and what you're trying to get out of that. We work through your questions together and anything outstanding that you're trying to accomplish. We work together to build your knowledge and confidence in using your new system so that you know all of the various pieces to get what you want out of it. We work together to address any hopes or dreams you have with existing functionality by looking at configurations, talking about releases, et cetera, that might be relevant to you. And we discuss what your ultimate goals are so that we can work towards those together, and happy to work with libraries on using analytics to measure their progress on those goals or measuring that they are meeting those goals. I think all of this just simmers down to we want libraries to be successful with Rapido, and that looks like a very different thing to each library. So it's based on a Rapido library's definition of success. We optimize workflows together and we stay up to date on current releases. So that way then you get the maximum use out of Rapido. So that's all a little bit about what the experience looks like in Rapido today. Very personalized, connected, optimized experience, and what can we expect coming up in Rapido. Okay, so in 2024, we can expect to see Rapido available for different library systems. So currently Rapido is available only for libraries using Alma, and that will be expanding next year. Another thing that we're working on is a collaborative work with Linda Hall Library as a development partner for net lending to work on high volume lenders to make Rapido work for them. Additionally, we're working on creation of new networks and partners. So again, working on the partnerships to be able to connect directly with OCLC libraries, opening up the resource sharing directory to any institution, and enhancing current integrations with other systems and new integrations. We're seeing that we want to be able to do, oh, I'm sorry, I'm running out of time here. We want to be libraries to be able to report on records that have incorrect metadata. We want to be able to remove resources from discovery that are not suitable for resource sharing. We'll have tiles for specific resources such as newspaper, and enhancing the Rapido title index to be more exact. Under optimizing, it was spoken to earlier. We're going to have ebook resource sharing in Rapido. We heard more about the letters too, so we're going to make it easier to customize letters and slips. And I think I'm at time here. I'll just throw out one of the great things about this conference, I think, is the conversations that happen. And here's a community space where you're welcome to continue those conversations with one another well after the conference ends. Here's a space for you to continue to connect and collaborate. So I think I'm at my time, and I'll stop sharing here.
All right. I do believe actually we have 5 minutes left of her session for questions and answers, correct, Miriam?
Yes, technically you have 5 more minutes, so there is some Q&A I saw.
So would it be okay if we went through that very quickly, Megan?
Yes, happy to.
Okay. The top voted question, can you use Rapido and OCLC WorldShare in combination?
Yes, there are libraries that use both Rapido and OCLC's WorldShare. They use that as a last resort model, so their requests come into Rapido through the request, the end user placing those requests, go out to those Rapido pod partners first, and then fall into OCLC's WorldShare if they get unfilled.
Great. What's the best advice you can give to transition from ILLiad to Rapido? I put in my 2 cents as somebody who's done it, but I'm sure that your advice would be wonderful.
I think that really varies per library, but understanding what your goals are and sharing those with your implementation team so that they can help you make sure you get there and nothing is missed in your implementation experience, so that it can be really tailored to what you're looking for. And then I'm happy to work with you once you do make that transition to continue a smooth transition into Rapido and a successful experience there.
Wonderful. We are an ILLiad library participating in RapidILL and Rapid Returnables. If we move to Rapido now, would we still be able to borrow returnables from our current Rapid partners via Rapido?
Yes, you can. Rapido libraries are connected to RapidR libraries as well as a part of the network.
Okay. Do you have any idea of the breakdown in Rapido users between public library versus universities?
At this time, Rapido is used by academic libraries. It's all used by Alma libraries, which tends to be academic libraries. I think that answers your question.
Yes, okay. What is the difference between a Rapid pod and a RapidILL pod?
So RapidILL is explicitly for electronic resource sharing, and it kind of works in the similar concept. In RapidILL, maybe you have your Cosmo, your M, your whatever other pods you might participate in, and you can order which what your priority of use is. And similar in Rapido, you have various pods that you can prioritize your order of use. But for pods in Rapido, you're working in physical resource sharing. And those terms of those pods are visible to your end users, providing them a user expectation and transparency. If you have more questions on that, we can discuss more, further too.
Okay. Is it the case that a library must be on Primo VE in order to implement Rapido?
Yes, Primo VE is necessary at this time to be, to line up for Rapido implementation.
And one last question, we're doing quite well on time. Will Rapido be available for Alma libraries with a discovery layer other than Primo? Example, Blacklight.
That's a good question. I don't know at this time. I know we're working for Rapido to work independently of Alma. And I know that that work is very, well, there's a lot to continue there. So I don't know what the limitations of that will eventually be. I think there's a lot of opportunities there.
And that is all I see in the Q&A. If anybody has another question, you have a minute to go ahead and toss it in. In the meantime, I do want to remind you about the post-session survey. I'm going to drop it into the chat again. And we will be taking a 5-minute break in between sessions. We do have a second one coming up in 5 minutes.